You already know the next song, so you know what to say. Seek!
So when I started this channel, I'm pretty certain one of the first things that I ever said was, I think it's safe to assume I'm a bigger Metallica fan than you. I think the fact that I don't go through an entire video without mentioning Metallica at least once has proven that. Last November in 2025, I got to live my dream as being an absolutely tragic Metallica fanboy, and I went to every single Metallica show that played in Australia. I was also incredibly lucky and got to do the big meet and greet thing, so this video is all about that. So why am I making this video? If I'm honest, most of this video is for me. This is a place for me to dump all my Metallica videos, all my Metallica photos, and all my holiday photos and everything like that, all in one spot, so it's a spot for me to come back to and, you know, remember all that awesome stuff that I did. But putting it on my YouTube channel is going to be an easy spot for me to be able to find it, and I assume it's going to be fairly safe for it to be on YouTube. So, you know, it's a safe storage spot, it's an easy way for me to go through things and, you know, have a good time remembering what a great time that I had. I mean, photos and videos are great and they're, you know, really good memories, but unless you put them together into a thing, you know, when are you going to go back and have a look at them? So this is a great way for me to put all those photos and videos together into a way that might be enjoyable to watch, so that I can remember probably what was the best 3 weeks of my life. So why am I making this video public on YouTube instead of just uploading it for myself and leaving it on private? Well, there's going to be a lot of really good practical concert advice in this video. Post-COVID, everyone sort of seems to have lost concert etiquette to an extent, and in the news in Australia, there's been lots of stories about how people should behave at concerts and things like that. So there'll be a bit of advice about that, and also I kind of did one of every sort of experience at every show. So if you want to know, you know, which seats and which tickets are worth it for like these big budget shows, this probably has some useful information for you. Also, if I'm honest, I still can't tell which videos are going to be successful on YouTube and which ones aren't. There are some videos that I put a whole bunch of work into and then it bombs, and then there are other videos that I put no work into and they succeed. So bugger it, if I'm making the video, I'm going to put it up on YouTube for me anyway. I might as well make it public because who knows, you guys might enjoy watching this as well. But also, if you don't enjoy watching it, doesn't matter, it's for me anyway. So you're welcome to come along for the ride, but enough babbling, enough introduction. Let's get stuck in, shall we? So if I'm honest, this trip was actually giving me a fair bit of anxiety. I am not a practical person in any sense of the word. I'm very much an ideas guy. One of my mates has a nickname for me called Wrong Way because I always go the wrong way. And am I the sort of guy that would book a trip to Sydney, Florida instead of Sydney, Melbourne? Yeah, that's the sort of mistake I would make. So I got a travel agent to do all the organization for me because, I mean, imagine stuffing this up, right? Imagine like having the ultimate 3-week trip planned and everything like that, and then I stuff up a flight and miss one of the shows, right? Like, and if I'm honest, that's the sort of thing that would happen to me. I'm that sort of like unlucky person where it's 50% unlucky and 50% me being vaguely incompetent. But also, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. The last time Metallica were due to come out, that's when James had to go back into rehab. And yeah, I had meet and greet tickets for that, and that was going to be my first meet and greet. So there was a bit of a history of these shows not working out. And I want to acknowledge that, like, I still cringe that those shows didn't happen. Ultimately, it's a really, really good thing that James went to rehab. Metallica have been doing this for what, 30 years? And I think they've cancelled like 2 shows in their entire history. But like after 30 years of being awesome, yeah, you guys are allowed to take a day off here or there. It's fine. It should be acceptable for a band to do that every now and then. Because at the end of the day, we need to acknowledge that the people who play that music are indeed human beings. And we need to respect them as human beings. I mean, I think it's kind of gross that society these days tends to expect artists and entertainers to continuously put out content for their fans or to do stuff non-stop to serve their fans. No job is worth hurting yourself for, and despite the fact that, you know, this entertainment is what gives us huge amount of joy and for some of us meaning, at the end of the day, it is their job, and no job is worth hurting yourself for. So if you wouldn't ask your best mate to hurt themselves to, do a thing for you, why would you ask, your favorite celebrities to hurt themselves for your sake? So while the fanboy in me still has a slight eye twitch that those shows didn't happen after getting the meet and greet and everything like that, at the end of the day, bravo, James, well done for looking after yourself. And ultimately, I knew that Metallica would eventually come back. I mean, it took about 6 years, but I knew that they'd come back eventually. But yeah, after all that build-up of the tour getting cancelled and so on and so forth, again, for very good reasons, there was a lot riding on this tour, and the idea of stuffing any of that up was terrifying to me. Fortunately, the first flight to Perth, everything worked out just fine.
G'day. So I'm in the airport, so the trip has finally started. I hate airports. I hate airports so much. There's too many people, there's too much tension, there's too much stress. So these are the sort of places that really freak me out, and I hate being here. So yay, love being in the airport, but in a few hours I will be in Perth, and Metallica leave can begin. So let's go. One thing I want to point out is that I never thought I'd be that guy filming himself in an airport. And I know that if I walked past me and I saw me filming in an airport right now, I would want to hit me because I'm being a vlogger. Isn't it weird how life changes sometimes? But anyways, checked in, had a beer, had lunch. Time to chill out to plane flight, I guess. Let's go.
Now, mates of mine made a very unfortunate decision. They booked their wedding on the day of the Melbourne show. Now, these are two very good mates of mine who we've been mates for a very long time. They both knew that on the day of a Metallica concert, I wasn't going to their wedding. That wasn't an option. I mean, realistically speaking, if it was my own wedding and Metallica booked a concert on that day, I'm skipping my wedding and going to see Metallica. So to compensate, we decided we would meet up in Perth and go to the Perth show together and do it as a bit of a bachelor sort of thing. So here are my thoughts on Perth. I want to like Perth. Perth is lovely. It's very pretty. It's also got a really nice vibe and it's really nice to walk around. However, Perth has this reputation of shutting down at about 8 o'clock at night, and that reputation is spot on accurate. So I've heard Perth is a really pretty city to go visit, yeah? Just thought you'd all like to, check out the view from my hotel room because, it's magnificent, honestly. Yeah, gorgeous. Perth is also about 4 hours behind Melbourne. Well, 4 hours and 10 years. Hey. So that obviously means that when it's 6 p.m. in Perth, that means it's 10 p.m. in Melbourne. And as it turns out, I think that a 4-hour time delay is sort of one of the most specific time delays that you could endure for jet lag that will just mess you up more than what you think. Because your body sort of thinks, 4 hours isn't that bad, but no, it actually is quite a lot. So when we got to Perth, even though we were all completely knackered from dealing with airports and flying to Perth and so on and so forth, we decided we'd push through until 11 o'clock, which makes us sound really, really old. But at the same time, 11 p.m. Perth time is 3 a.m. Melbourne time. And we did that so that our body clocks would hopefully be better adjusted for the show the next day, because, we'd hate for it to hit 8 p.m. Perth time when Metallica go on stage and we're ready for bed, right? That ain't happening. So on the day of the show, I was predictably tragic. I warned my friends beforehand that I am just pathetic on the day of a Metallica show, and I didn't disappoint. We did a bunch of sightseeing, so we went to the Perth Mint, where I saw things that had more zeros on a price tag than I've ever seen before. And we had a wander around, had a nice lunch and so on and so forth. And look, I was actually doing pretty good until we went for a bourbon tasting. And I walked in and they started playing Creeping Death. That kind of just flicked a switch in me. From that point on, I was just sort of bouncing everywhere. I resembled a golden retriever bouncing for a tennis ball, oh my God, I'm going to see Metallica. I'm going to see Metallica. I'm going to see Metallica. I was just... look, it's kind of embarrassing, but at the same time, I make no apologies. And even though it was hours before the show, I started nagging my friends, hey, can we go to the venue now? Can we go to the venue? I want to go to the venue. Let's go to the venue. Let's get in. And this was hours before the venue even opened or anything like that.
Okay, quick update. About to go to the venue now. It's just hit them, about to see Metallica. Place I walked into before, just before coming back to the hotel to make sure I was sorted. Walked in and I started playing Creeping Death because I saw my shirt, obviously. And that just dumped a huge amount of adrenaline in. Made it clear what I was about to do. Don't know what planet I'm on, but I'm about to see Metallica. Let's fucking go.
And the other thing as well that started messing with me is that I started seeing like a sea of Metallica t-shirts everywhere. It didn't matter where I went, there were Metallica shirts there. So even though I was trying to like put it aside in my brain and just focus on what we were doing, and be more of a sociable human being, I'd turn around and Metallica logos. Oh my God, I'm about to see Metallica. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like Perth suddenly had a coat of Metallica paint everywhere and Pusshead's art was everywhere. It was amazing. So we get to the stadium, and I do want to acknowledge that getting in for all of these shows was a bit of a nightmare. There are about 4 different companies running about 3 or 4 different promotions and entries into the show. And did any of them talk to each other? Of course not. That would have made sense. So you had the Metallica fan club running a thing. Sometimes you had a telco like Optus or Telstra running a thing. You had the stadium doing its own entrance and so on and so forth. And then there was normally some other group doing their own sort of like ticketing and way into the stadium. It was a hot mess. Long story short, we get in, we have a really nice dinner. That was one of the packages that we organized. And yeah, if you get a chance to do one of those packages, good deal, go for it. But I had floor because, Metallica was about to go on stage. Do you think I was going to remotely be able to sit still? No, I was not. Whereas my other friends who were civilized, they had actual seats. So I left them at the dinner table and went onto the floor as early as possible to make sure I got a good spot. I knew for the first show I'd be bouncing off the wall, so the pit was going to be the right space for me. Quite frankly, the pit is always the correct space, but we'll come back to that later. So for now, I'll discuss the support acts because both support acts did the exact same set every night. So I'll get the support acts out of the way for now, and then we can just focus on Metallica. Suicidal Tendencies were the first support act, and they are great fun. They are just so much fun to see live. They did get shafted pretty bad by the audio quality. It's the job of being the first support act. You always get slightly shafted. But they were really, really exciting and really, really good fun live. I like that they sort of like bring a real sort of jamming sort of vibe to it. So, there's a slight unpredictability to their show. Even though it was a vaguely similar show each time, it didn't feel like it was going to be the same show each time. Rob's son is an absolute monster on bass. What a shock, right? But there were a few times that you could actually see Rob standing to the side of the stage, watching his son play bass. And that stuff's just cool to see. And it's funny as well when you realize that, Rob's son was sometimes playing Rob's bass lines. It's like, is he doing it right, Dad? Is he? Yeah, he was. Evanescence were their second support act, and they sound fantastic. They are super tight, and they put on a really, really good show. Amy Lee's vocals are amazing live. She's well known for being an extraordinary singer, but seriously, live, she's spot on. Amy Lee was flawless for each of the 5 performances I saw her. She killed it every single time, and in general, the band is really awesome at doing the thing that they do. The crowd always went nuts for Bring Me to Life, and the crowd would fill in the rap parts that Amy Lee didn't want to do because Amy Lee was too busy being amazing at singing her own parts. But aside from Amy Lee, the drummer also really impressed me because for the style of riffing that Evanescence do, they need to be super, super tight and everything's sort of like really locked in with the kick drum. And yeah, that drummer, you could set your watch to him and he's going to be spot on. So kudos to the drummer as well. Anyways, we're not here to talk about the support acts. So once Evanescence was done, the backdrop lit up with this gigantic Metallica banner. And it was a different Metallica banner for each show, and there'll be a photo of each one, don't worry, obviously. And at that point in time, that's when my mind sort of went into overdrive. Like, I was already bouncing off the walls, but now it's like, oh my God, it's actually going to happen. And then Metallica come out and open with Creeping Death. Let's go. 50,000 people chanting "Die" for the bridge. Just awesome stuff. And the moment that those opening chugs hit, like, I just had this massive adrenaline dump in my system, and I just beelined to the pit and just started going for it. Now let's take a slight detour just for a little bit. At the same time Metallica came out, Australia had a huge amount of big name bands come out to Australia, all roughly about the same time. I think, post-COVID, this was when all the big bands could finally make their way back to Australia. So, this is when it all started happening. And as a result, I think that there was a lot of people that forgot concert etiquette for a show like this. And Perth was a slight victim of this, but kind of made it more fun. See, half of the floor where I was adequately prepared and ready and psyched for a good old-fashioned mosh pit. To quote Exodus, good, friendly, violent fun. We were looking for that good, friendly, violent fun of people slamming into each other, throwing each other around, running into each other, all that great stuff that happens in a mosh pit. It's glorious. And if you're not into mosh pits, I can guarantee that everything I just said makes no sense to you, and that's cool. Mosh pits either make sense to you or they make no sense. Mosh pits are like one of my favorite places to be. So half of us were there for a mosh pit and, for a Metallica show. The other half were at the barrier for reasons that we didn't quite understand. There was a lot of people complaining about all the pushing and shoving that was going on in the mosh pit. There were a lot of disapproving looks, and if I'm honest, a lot of whining. One person, he went, "Oh my God, if one more person pushes me."
2 people were arrested. And this is what they'd come to see. Metallica, an American band accused of inciting their crowds to violence. Their brand of music fast and deafening.
Yeah, what? What exactly are you going to do? You are at the barrier on the floor for a Metallica show. What exactly did you think was going to happen? What exactly were you going to do if one more person pushed you? Turn around and yell at the 100 people moshing behind you? Good luck with your projects. Like, you're at a Metallica show. Where do you think you are? The band opened with a song that had 50,000 people chanting "Die." This is a band with songs like Battery, Whiplash, No Remorse. I mean, what exactly were you expecting? And to be honest, the half the crowd that were like shocked and appalled that there was moshing going on, I actually kind of want to thank you because you made everything so much more fun for the rest of us. Those of you who were shocked and appalled that there was moshing at the front of a Metallica show on the floor and were complaining about, you kind of just inspired us to go even harder. So at that Perth show, I do feel like that the metalheads, I think we all gave those newbies a bit of an education as to what happens at a proper metal show. And if you were one of those people at the front during the Perth show, welcome to Metallica. But apart from that, how was the show overall? It was great. It was a Metallica show, but if I'm honest, the first show barely registers to my system because I'm just in such fanboy mode that, I'm just too excited to process everything properly. My brain was just too busy going, "Oh my God, it's actually happening," and "Holy crap, it's Hetfield," and "Oh my God, look, it's Kirk and he's playing the mummy guitar." Like, everything like that is just going on in my brain. So, the notes and the things that are actually going on, they don't register as well as they should. I mean, that Perth show could have been the worst played Metallica show in Metallica's history, and I guarantee I wouldn't have noticed. And this is one of the reasons why I needed to do all 5 shows, because if I just did one of them, I would have had the time of my life, but I wouldn't have actually, processed anything. But at the end of the day, I walked out of that show with a massive grin on my face. I was thrown around a lot in the mosh pit. I threw others around in the mosh pit. We saw Hetfield chug on the low E string. We heard Kirk step on a wah pedal. We got everything we wanted. It was amazing. So the next day, my mates flew home because, they had a wedding to go to, which, yeah, sorry about that. Not sorry, but sorry, but not sorry. So I had the day to myself and I wandered around Perth and explored it myself for a little bit. I also caught a ferry to Fremantle. Now, Fremantle, I actually really like. Perth closes at 8, but Fremantle keeps going, apparently. It's a little bit touristy. It's a little bit, a little bit much. But at the same time, every pub that I walked past had some, some music going on, some live music. So, that's always a good start. One pub I walked past, there was this guy doing a version of Orgathella Station, which was a song that my dad's band used to play. So I was like, hey, yep, that'll be the place to stop. So I stopped in for a drink. And I walked in wearing the Metallica tour t-shirt that I bought the night before. And the moment I walked in, there were about 4 or 5 people at this table of randoms that just went, hey, here he is. I'd never met these people before, but the fact that I was wearing the correct t-shirt meant they were pleased to see me. So I pulled up a chair and myself and those 4 or 5 other randoms spent the night having a couple of beers and just talking about the Metallica show and talking about Metallica in general. Now, here's another thing about these 3 weeks. I've been a Metallica tragic since high school. This may or may not be a huge shock to you, but being a Metallica tragic, that doesn't really get you many cool points. Like, nobody thinks you're cool because you like Metallica. I mean, I think you're cool if you like Metallica, but that's me. Normies look at you with disdain because it's like, oh my God, you like that heavy metal garbage? What's wrong with you? Do you worship the devil? Do you sacrifice small animals at night? What's wrong with you? But meanwhile, metalheads also look at you with disdain because, it's Metallica, the amount of times that they've sold out and so on and so forth. So the normies reject you and the metalheads also sort of reject you and you're just sort of like, yay, I like Metallica, go me, yay. None of this ever bothered me, obviously. I just kept flying the Metallica flag because, it's a little bit more heavy metal to like the thing that you're not supposed to like, right? So yeah, I like Metallica. That makes me more metal than you. But for this tour, wherever you went, people wanted to talk about Metallica. And since I very obviously am a psychotic Metallica fan, meant that people actually kind of wanted to talk to me. For the first time in my life, it was actually cool to be a Metallica fan. The 30 odd years I've had of dedication to Metallica and studying every note, every single piece of equipment that they play and so on and so forth, all that dedication finally came into use for these 3 weeks. And for a change, me dumping a huge amount of information about Metallica on somebody, that wasn't met with disdain. Instead, that was met with, whoa, dude, that's awesome. So yeah, I was having a real good time. Anyways, I eventually had to call it a night because I had an early morning the next day. So called a taxi and went back to my hotel. And that's where I discovered something about Perth. There's 2 different parts to Perth. There's Perth and there's Perth City. They're 2 different things. I found this out the hard way. So I kind of told the taxi driver to take me to the wrong hotel first because I was unaware that there were 2 different Perths. And you remember before when I was saying that I'm the sort of slightly non-practical person, slightly incompetent person that makes, all those little stuff ups? Do we see what I'm talking about? Yeah, right. This is why I got a travel agent. And I assure you it's that sort of typical wrong way incompetence that I'm talking about. Not inspired by the beers that I'd had or anything like that. No, that wasn't a factor at all. Oh, and one other fun thing about Perth is that whenever you tell somebody in Perth that you're from the east coast of Australia, they spend a long time trying to convince you how great Perth is. Whenever I was in a taxi anywhere, the taxi driver was always working hard to convince me how great Perth is. I'm going to acknowledge that they had a point. Perth actually does seem pretty awesome. But yeah, it was sort of oddly welcoming and also oddly, you'll like us. I promise you'll like us. So yeah, the next day, since I had a bit of time between shows, I went to Rottnest Island. Slightly disappointed because I found out that 2 days before, that's when Hetfield went to Rottnest Island. So, yeah, it's always going to work out that way, isn't it? And I need to acknowledge I wasn't quite properly prepared for Rottnest Island. And the only reason why I went to Rottnest Island is to see the quokkas. They're tiny, they're fluffy, they've got hands, and they've got adorable smiling faces. I mean, that's enough to get me to go anywhere. However, what I wasn't prepared for is that Rottnest Island is actually ridiculously pretty. Like, the whole island is just gorgeous with some of the nicest looking beaches I've ever seen. Casual warning that apparently there's a lot of sharks in that area. So, if you go to Rottnest Island, be careful about swimming there. Make sure you swim between the flags and so on and so forth. The only sort of disappointing thing about that day is that it was 32 degrees, which is a pretty hot day, even by Australian standards. So that meant that the quokkas were all hanging out in the shade. They didn't want to come out and interact with us much, which I can't say I blame them. So it's hard for me to go out, wandering and find all the wild quokkas instead of the quokkas that just hang around the settlements. Like, you could see them, but they were off in the distance hiding under the bushes and, sleeping because it was hot. But seriously, if you go to Rottnest Island, you are genuinely going to be tripping over quokkas wherever you go. They are everywhere. So if you like seeing small, fluffy animals with adorable faces and tiny little hands, go to Rottnest Island. It's beautiful. There's a million quokkas. It's a great day. Oh, and if it's going to be a hot day, take some stuff to swim in because those beaches are ridiculously pretty. So the next day, I flew to Adelaide. Now, I didn't get to see much of Adelaide. Reason being is that I was only there for 2 nights. I was basically flying in to see Metallica and flying the hell out because it's Adelaide. And I've been to Adelaide a bunch of times as a kid, so whatever. I stayed with a friend of mine in Adelaide who was a wonderful host. She also has an adorable golden retriever who gave me a golden retriever fix, which I desperately needed at that point in time. I mean, this was the first time I'd been away from my tiny fluffy good boy. So yeah, I needed some golden retriever hugs. On the off chance that they watch this, because this video is probably going to be way too long for anybody else to consider watching, again, thank you very much for being a wonderful host. That home cooked meal that you guys gave me was one of the best home cooked meals I've ever had. It was amazing. They could only host me for a night, and my flight to Melbourne was the day after the Metallica show, like in the next morning, a couple of hours later. So to make everyone's life easier, I spent that night staying at the airport hotel, which 100% remind me of the castle because the airport was literally over the back fence. At this show, I caught up with another mate who's doing some really awesome things with music. Keep an eye out for him. We had our dinner and we went to our separate seats. Now, I deliberately chose seats for this show because as much as I love being in a mosh pit and everything like that, I like the music of Metallica. Like, the music means a lot to me. So I wanted to have at least a couple of shows where I sat down and, actually listened to what was going on. Now, the seat I chose for the Adelaide show was dead center of the stage, but that also meant I was a long way away from the stage. But that being said, even though you're a long way away, like I doubt that Hetfield saw me at this show, even though you're a long way away, it's actually a really, really good seat because you can see the whole stage. So you can see everything that's going on all at once. So it was actually a really rewarding show to sit down and watch because I got to see everything, which if you're right up the front in a mosh pit or in the snake pit for that matter, you don't get to see the whole stage. So it was a really, really cool experience to be able to see the whole stage. In my humble opinion, Adelaide was actually the best show of the tour because it had the most varied set list. The sound was great where I was sitting, and yeah, it was really, really awesome to sit back and see the whole show. The highlight of the show was absolutely Fade to Black. I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. And seriously, Metallica, you bastards can't come out and just play Fade to Black without warning. You can't just throw that at people and expect us to be able to handle it. That wasn't fair, and I was bawling my freaking eyes out.
Nothing lost, this can't be real. I can't stand this hell I feel. This is really bad. No point of agony. Growing darkness taking on. Yeah, the hours, but now he's gone.
I also have a newfound appreciation for Leper Messiah. I always found it a vaguely sort of awkward song to listen to with like that main riff, but that thrashy section in the middle, oh, that really hit hard that night. I think you guys really nailed it that night. But then also after the thrashy section, to go back to that real, stomping awkward riff, it actually kind of made sense to me for the first time. So yeah, I have a newfound appreciation for Leper Messiah and how awesome of a song that is. It's funny, isn't it, that, sometimes you listen to a song on an album and it's like, yeah, all right, whatever. But then you see it live and then suddenly everything makes sense. That's what happened to me with Leper Messiah. But yeah, the band got into a really good flow on Adelaide. Everything was firing on all cylinders, and they looked like that they were having a really good time, and that, they looked really comfortable and relaxed on stage, which, after 30, 40 odd years of doing this, you'd expect them to be pretty comfortable on stage by this stage. But yeah, awesome performance, gorgeous venue. Adelaide Oval is ridiculously pretty. The whole thing was 10 out of 10. Genuinely one of the best Metallica shows I've ever seen. That being said, getting out of Adelaide was an experience. I don't think Adelaide is ever equipped to deal with more than 100 people in one area at one time. So, getting from the Adelaide Oval to my hotel, that was a slight nightmare. But obviously we got there and we survived. Anyways, I got home and slept for about 2 hours because that's about the amount of time that I had left. And then I got up and went to the airport and flew home to Melbourne so that way I could hug my good boy, because that was super important. I'll go admit, one of the strangest things that I missed about whiskey was not having the constant low-level harassment. Like, I was able to walk around without something bumping into the back of my legs the entire time, those were the things I missed the most. How do you people do that? How do you walk around without having, something fluffy bumping into your legs and looking up at you the whole time? Like, that's not natural. Nobody should live like that. Now, even though Melbourne was the third show, I'm going to talk about Melbourne last. We'll come back to Melbourne because, look, it'll make sense when we get there. Melbourne was a big deal, so that's why we'll save, best for last.
nothing else matters. Let's see those lights. I've never opened myself this way. Life is ours, we live it our way. All these words out on the sea, and nothing else matters. That's beautiful. Be much more from the heart, forever trusting who we are, and nothing else matters. Yeah.